happens when human suffering becomes prime time entertainment. The Biggest Loser promised transformation, but behind the weigh-ins and the dramatic reveals was a system built on abuse, humiliation, and profit, not care. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, and if you're new, welcome. Hi. I'm Jill Nicholson. I'm a therapist and I'm also a former emotional eater who's lost and kept off 120 pounds. On this channel, we explore all things therapy, the patterns that shape who we are and how we heal and grow. Today, I want to talk about the Netflix docuseries Fit for TV, the reality of The Biggest Loser. And the painful truth is exposed, not just about the weight loss on television, but about abuse, exploitation, and the dangerous messages so many absorbed about their bodies. Fit for TV is a 3-part Netflix series about The Biggest Loser, the reality show that first aired in 2004 and ran for 18 seasons. Over 250 episodes, contestants, people living in larger bodies, competed to lose the most weight or the highest percentage of body fat. The winner took home $250,000. Together, participants lost a staggering £34,033. Winners went on to do the talk show circuit, becoming minor celebrities. On the surface, it all sounded like a win-win. Transformation, fame, money. But as Fit for TV shows us, there was also a very, very dark side. I find certain aspects especially disturbing, like how the camera would deliberately shake when an overweight contestant fell, as if to suggest an earthquake. In a society that's supposedly more aware of how we treat each other, it's striking how weight is still one of the few areas where mockery is accepted, even celebrated in some spaces. Joelle Gwynn from season 7 said, "People love making fun of fat people." And in that way, it makes it sound a bit more like a circus. Yes, we are looking back from the lens of 2025. Almost, 20 years since the show first aired. But it's hard to ignore the undercurrent of entertainment in watching obese people shamed and blamed. Past contestants described the lasting psychological scars of being yelled at, bullied, and humiliated by trainers under the guise of motivation. Some called the experience outright traumatic. One of the trainers, Bob Harper, even admitted that producers encouraged this cruelty, saying, "We want them to puke, we want the madness of it all." This wasn't fitness, that was spectacle built on human suffering. The intensity of the workouts made it seem like the only way to lose weight was to push yourself to the absolute brink, vomiting, passing out, collapsing. That's not health. That is trauma dressed up as transformation. It sent a toxic, insidious message. Being overweight is your fault, so punishment is required. The workouts weren't portrayed as joy or self-care. They were depicted as penance. Beyond that, they were entertainment for the audience. Many contestants spoke about injuries that still cause them difficulties years later. One woman revealed she suffered stress fractures in her feet from the brutal exercise regime. Others talked about lasting pain in their joints, their backs, their muscles. This wasn't wellness. It was harm that lingered long after the cameras were turned off. Instead of focusing on food, the part of weight loss that science tells us matters the most, the show glorified extreme exercise. People were bullied through punishing workouts while often surviving on starvation-level diets as little as 800 calories a day. That's not healthy. That's reckless. Some contestants pushed to the brink, like Tracy Yukik from season 8, who collapsed from rhabdomyolysis, a life-threatening condition, yet she returned to the competition. The Biggest Loser made millions, it maybe even made billions across advertising, licensing, sponsorship, while contestants were left with stipends, prize money for a few, and no aftercare. Their bodies were commodities and their pain was profit. Ryan Benson, the winner of season 1, said that Gillian Michaels, one of the trainers, told him, "You've just made me a millionaire." She disputes this. Benson, who lost 122 of his 330-pound starting weight and is now back above 300 pounds, publicly admitted that he dropped some of the weight by fasting and dehydrating himself to the point that he was urinating blood. Outwardly, he looked healthy, but inwardly, he certainly was not. Contestant struggles built someone else's fortune, while they were left to cope with trauma, injury, and shame. They asked for aftercare, but they didn't get it. A gym membership, a support group, nothing was forthcoming. And here's the heartbreaking reality. Most contestants regained the weight. Many gained back more, not because they were weak, but because their metabolisms had been damaged by extreme methods. A 2016 NIH study tracked the Biggest Loser contestants and found their resting metabolic rates plummeted, making weight loss maintenance nearly impossible. Their bodies fought to regain the weight. It was biology, not failure. Equally, I want to acknowledge that some contestants have managed to keep the weight off long term, often through major lifestyle changes. For them, the experience did lead to some positive outcomes, though this was not the case for many others. What struck me most was how the show's culture mirrored the very shame so many of us feel about or felt about being overweight or of being an emotional eater. The idea that our bodies are broken, our weight is our fault, and we deserve punishment. That's not healing, that's abuse. Emotional eating isn't a flaw to beat out of yourself, it's a signal, it's a cry for comfort that can only be answered with compassion. So, what does real healing look like? Well, we need to see food as care, not restriction. We need to reclaim food as nourishment, as self-care, not punishment. And learn to recognise our physical hunger and fullness cues, not fear them. So we understand the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. If you would like my free resource on differentiating between physical and emotional hunger, the link is in the description. And movement as joy, not as a penalty. Exercise should be supportive, life-giving, safe, fun. Walking, stretching, dancing, swimming. These are all acts of care, not sentences to be endured until you collapse. The emotional support is so important. Be it in therapy, be it journaling your thoughts so you can figure out your triggers, be it support groups. These are the foundations of real change. The emotional angle of eating has to be addressed. It's huge. Success isn't about vomiting from a workout or hitting a number on a scale. Success is feeling peace in your body, feeling fitter, meeting your emotional needs without shame, and knowing your worth isn't conditional. If you've ever felt as if you had to punish yourself for your weight, please hear me now. You don't. You're not your numbers, your scale, or your past. You deserve kindness, not cruelty. Fit for TV shows us what happens when pain is turned into profit, but it also challenges us to imagine something different. Healing through compassion, food as nourishment, and movement as joy. For me, emotional eating isn't a failure, it's about survival. Food becomes a comfort, a coping tool, when what we really need is safety or connection, rest or love. And today we have a much deeper understanding of this, thank goodness. In my one-to-one work with clients, I often see that at the root of overeating, at the root of emotional eating, is the use of food to regulate emotions when other coping mechanisms are not available. Yes, exercise matters. Yes, it's important to understand our triggers and make supportive food choices. But real lasting change doesn't come from focusing on just one piece, on just one aspect like exercise. It requires a blend of all these elements if we truly want to lose weight and, more importantly, keep it off. So this week, what's one way you can show your body care instead of punishment? Through food, through rest, movement, or words of kindness. Share in the comments. Let's remind each other that healing doesn't come from abuse, it comes from care. You are enough. You are worthy. And if you are making lifestyle changes, do one small change each week. Thank you for watching, and if this has been helpful, please subscribe, like, share, and comment. What did you think of this docuseries? Maybe you thought differently than me. I'd love to hear. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.